Welcome into Stone Cold Stros. I'm Brandon Strange alongside Charlie Palillo and Josh Jordan. You can follow them on X at Palillo and at JoshJordan975. And in between episodes here, you can read their blogs covering the Astros, Texans, and Rockets over on sportsmap.com. On today's episode, Houston grabs a much-needed series win from the Fish, but their next series is against a real flounder in New York. JP3 is making his presence felt back from the IL, and Mamma Mia, so did Arrighetti, but not in the way Joe Espada had hoped. Before all that, show your support for the show, hit like on the video, subscribe to the channel, click the bell for notifications. We're also on all your favorite podcast apps. One more shameless plug, the three of us are relaunching our Texans podcast, Texans on Tap. First episode drops next week, so keep an eye out for that if you're a Texans fan. Charlie, Josh, welcome in. Teased in the open, Houston handles business Monday and Tuesday with the offense looking more like they had hoped it would post trades. Wednesday, they jumped out to another lead, but it was short-lived as Spencer Arrighetti's meatballs put them in a hole that the offense couldn't dig their way out of, although they had plenty of opportunities to. But a series win is a series win. What were your takeaways from Miami?
Well, you hit the summary. When you take the first two games of a series, have a chance for a sweep, and you feel like you left some money on the table. But while the Marlins are anonymous, and I think it's been a lot of smoke and mirrors when you look at their lineup and, frankly, their pitching staff. But look, they had the second best record in the National League over more than a month and a half's time, a better record than the Astros over that time before the series began. So for the Astros to go in there and get 2 out of 3, it's productive. I mean, Arrighetti's return, nightmarish, but it's his first time out, so not too much to be read into it, but he needs to show improvement the second time out. Frankly, it was kind of surprising to only give up 3 runs in that first inning, torched for 6 hits and one hard hit ball after another. It's not like they were all bloop hits. And then he's left in to basically get flogged to eat up some innings and give up 11 hits and still not get through 5. Which goes to what is the biggest concern right now with the Astros. What's the rotation after Framber and Hunter? I mean, they got a gift from the gods start from Jason Alexander. Colt Gordon probably gets the last start of the Yankee series. He's been lousy now for about a month's time, and Arrighetti's not there yet. Christian Javier continues to have terrible command of the strike zone in his minor league starts, but he's probably going to make a major league start next week. So I think there's a good chance when you look at the schedules, the Mariners catch the Astros by this time next week, but then you'll have a reset in about 40 games of a sprint toward the finish. And if the Mariners catch and go by and finish ahead of the Astros, there's still the wild card, and the Astros go into the weekend 4.5 games ahead of the Cleveland Guardians, 4.5 games ahead of the Texas Rangers. In between, they're 3 games ahead of the New York Yankees, making it a big series in the Bronx this weekend.
Yeah, coming into this Marlins series, the Astros had a sweep happen in 5 of their last 8 series, a sweep in one direction or the other. It almost happened again in the Marlins series, but no, they couldn't quite come through, had some opportunities. Dubon almost flipped one over second base late in the game, but just it didn't feel like their day. But it was nice to see the sticks get going in the Marlins series. A lot more runs. Remember that Red Sox series, 2 of those games, the Astros only got 1 run. And a big reason for that is, man, Carlos Correa and Sanchez have been fantastic. Correa has been crazy good. He has more home runs in his 6, or the same amount of home runs in his 6 games since rejoining the Astros as he had in June and July combined. So I had a feeling that home cooking, getting that change of scenery might be the deal for Carlos. And early on, it looks pretty damn good. I mean, his numbers are crazy. He's hitting 346 in those 6 games. Like I said, a couple bombs, slugging over 500, OPS over 900. So he's been fantastic. And then the other big key there is, starting to get Christian Walker and Yainer Diaz. They've been pretty good for the last 30 days. So it's starting to feel like this is a real thing. I don't think they're just getting hot. I think they're coming around, getting into form. I think that's huge. And with Arrighetti, yeah, he gave up some hard contact, gave up a lot of soft contact, got a lot of whiffs in the game. I think like 16, something like that in a short outing. That's a lot, so that's a positive sign. I think I counted right 4 infield hits that Arrighetti gave up, possibly. I think 3 of them were at Correa. Just a really weird start, just a really weird game all around. Astros got a lot of hits in this game. They just weren't able to get the runs to go along with those hits. So overall, hey, a lot better than what you saw with the Red Sox. I think these guys are clicking a little bit. You saw Carlos lead off, look really good in that role, and then Pena comes in the game and you move it over. I thought it was really interesting quickly that Correa wanted to stay at third with Pena having that off day. He did not want to go play shortstop and be bouncing back and forth. He thinks he's seeing some positive results from the toll that his body takes from not having to play shortstop anymore. So I thought that was interesting. You saw Dubon in there, and it sounds like Espada is going to continue to do that with Dubon when Pena's out.
Yeah, suck it.
Speaks to Espada feeling his way along some with the lineup. Carlos Correa does not fit the profile of a leadoff hitter. His last stolen base came in 2019. But think Isaac Paredes.
Yep.
The job is to get on base. And Correa, after 0 for 4 in his second Astros debut, Josh covered it, subtract those 4 at-bats, 9 for 22, so that's 409. And it's less than a week's work, but it's a nice week. A guy who'd only hit 7 home runs all season until rejoining the Astros, 2 of those already. Of course, when Jeremy Pena is in the lineup, Carlos Correa is not going to be in that leadoff spot. Does he want Sanchez splitting the 2 righties, right? Where does he ultimately want Altuve to settle? I mean, Jordan's a ghost at this point until he gets back to where you really ideally would structure the Astros lineup. And as for Christian Walker and Yainer Diaz, I feel like it lacked the drama of when Ted Williams was making his run and ultimately did hit 400 84 years ago. But both Walker and Diaz left Miami with their OPSs at, in Walker's case, and just above in Diaz's case, 700. Yep. Which at least is approaching mediocrity for the league. It's terrible for guys who are hitting in the middle of the lineup, but even more so in Walker's case than Diaz's case, the depths from which they've risen, it does give cause that they can be contributing players the rest of the way.
Yeah, the results from a win-loss perspective weren't what they hoped from the road trip, but I think offensively, you look at it and lend some hope to what they hoped this lineup could be like post trades. What's been an otherwise beleaguered lineup for most of the season, and you guys pointed out obviously the highlights with Walker 3 home runs and 6 RBI and 3 walks on the roadie. 3 walks, just really good stuff. Cam Smith had 3 hits over the first 2 games. The last game had a couple of loud outs. So you hope maybe he's starting to get back into the swing of things. Maybe he's starting to find himself a little bit. I dare not dream about Jordan because of just the trajectory of this season and the amount of injuries that have befallen this team. But if somehow Alvarez could return and be a fraction of himself, this lineup is, dare I say, long with a bench that, dare I say, is deep?
Yeah, and look, I mean, Cam Smith is 9 for his last 74 with 24 strikeouts. That's a 122 batting average. But this is the same guy that the lineup was in such tatters and Joe Espada was grasping at straws. Cam Smith was batting leadoff. He was batting cleanup. Well, with a guy who's, frankly, at this point, a bad offensive player, he's hitting 8th or 9th. So like last season, if Jake Myers was hitting 8th or 9th, guys bat 8th or 9th for a reason. So it's not as damaging to the Astros lineup if Cam Smith's going to remain in the deep freeze if he's down toward the bottom. And did I mention Jake Myers? Who knows on him as well. Look, the Yankee series, the Astros have to win it or it's a sucky road trip. Right? They got drummed out of Boston. You take 2 out of 3 in Miami, so they're 2-4. If the Yankees, who have been just lousy, they're 19-29. That's sub 400 baseball over 48 games. Right? The Astros are 9-16 their last 25. That's a 100 loss pace if you do it for a whole season. But that's half the period of time now over which the Yankees have just stunk it up. I mean, this is a monstrous series for the Yankees this week, and it's big for the Astros. But the Yankees have been bleeding for the better part of 2 months now. So if the Astros, who have Framber and Hunter Brown going the first 2 games, I'm not saying they have to win those 2 games, but it's going to be hope for the best on Sunday, whoever is the starter. Right, the Astros dropped the series 2 out of 3. It's a 3-6 road trip. The Red Sox have caught them. The Yankees would be closing in on them. The Mariners might have caught them. and the Astros start the week at home against those same Red Sox.
That's why when we were making these videos before the A series, we were talking about like, hey, here's a really good time to make some hay and get some wins at home, because you got to go on the road and play the Red Sox and play a Marlins team that's better than you think, and play the Yankees. And then sure enough, you get swept by Oakland or Sacramento, whatever you want to call them. We'll just call them the A's. But you get swept by them, and then here you are in a tricky position where you really need to win this series against the Yankees. And then you have another tough series coming up with Boston after that. So we'll see how it goes down. With Jordan, Dana Brown was on the flagship and said that, Jordan's making progress, but he's still not at the point where he's facing like live BP or anything like that. He said he feels good. That's a good sign, but we've seen this movie before, guys, right? Unless he ramps up and doesn't have another setback, then we're just playing the waiting game with him. He did mention Jake Myers, believe it or not, Charlie. And he was like, yeah, imagine when we get Jake back, around the time we get Jordan back, and then we'll be on full cylinders again. That's his big phrase. So we'll see, but I'm just happy. I feel like the offense is good now that you made the additions at the trade deadline. I feel like it's a good offense from day to day. I feel like they're going to give you a chance to win ball games. You just need Jordan to come back and then try and make a playoff push.
Well, imagination is the only way in which we've seen a full, healthy lineup from this team, because critical pieces of it have been injured. We got the report this week that Isaac Paredes is going to forego surgery and try to do PRP treatment to see if he can get back before the end of the season. I'm not going to hold my breath on that. I mean, it sounds like it's a pretty severe situation. So I think it's just hope is the plan at this point, and that those PRP injections are as good as people say they are. And as far as, Astros, getting swept by the A's, I'll just give credit where it's due. They also took 2 of 3 for the Mariners. So they're obviously hot right now. Look, I'll say this too. Jesus Sanchez might get overlooked because of the Carlos Correa deal being, stealing all the headlines, but that might be one of the most under the radar moves that is really helping this team right now, because that guy brings an incredible bat, but also an attitude, just an infectious love for the game that I think is really good for this clubhouse right now, that I think has, been going through it over the past month and a half. Obviously, Charlie, you mentioned this a little bit, so maybe we'll get Josh's thoughts on here, but Arrighetti obviously still working his way back into shape. Espada said Javier could be slated to return as soon as the next homestand, but Dana Brown said he thought he could use one more rehab start. Hey, way to get your story straight before you talk to the media. McCullers obviously working his way back. Garcia, more rehab starts. JP France just behind him. Brandon Walters, who knows? Or Walter, I should say, who knows? A lot of TBA making starts for Houston recently. We saw this series, the bullpen get taxed pretty good. Josh, what are your concerns for the pitching depth, considering that was one place that Dana was unable to bolster at the deadline?
I understand why he didn't do it, because he said the price was just too much. And I saw a lot of other GMs interviewed after the deadline, and they're like, and that's why you didn't see a lot of frontline starters move. The GMs are just like, the prices were just way too high. So I can't blame Dana. If that is the report that they wanted Arrighetti and possibly also Bryce Matthews for the rental of Dylan Cease, I don't know. That feels a little bit too much for me. I think you're going to need Arrighetti, especially if you're planning on letting Fromber walk because you gave Correa all his money, at least a lot of it. So I'm a little concerned with Javier. Lance Zierlein tweeted something out I thought was pretty interesting. I saw that he was up to, Dana Brown said he's been up to 94, 95 with his fastball. In his last start, it was tweeted out that he got up to almost 94. Lance posted in 2022, his average velo on the fastball was almost 94. It fell to a tick below 93 in 2023, and then it fell to a tick below 92 in 2024 when he had the really poor season that Charlie brings up. It hasn't always been good with Javier. So the fact that he's kind of in the velocity zone of when he was at his peak powers, that gives me a little bit of encouragement that when he comes back, obviously he has to improve his command. The guy, he just walks too many people. And I get your point, Brandon. It's going to make the bullpen have to come in earlier. And there are concerns there. I think it's going to be like this for a while. They're going to have to let Arrighetti dip his toe in. And like we saw in this game, you're going to watch Javier probably only give you 3 or 4 innings, and then Luis Garcia behind him. So I think this is something they're going to have to adjust to. But hopefully by the time you get through this period, they're going to be in a much better place coming down the last month of the season. At least that's the hope. So hopefully we get, true, pinnacle Javier when he finally does return, because we know the velo is a big part of his game with that fastball and throwing it up high and getting guys to chase.
14 innings pitched, 15 walks.
Yep.
For Javier through his rehab starts. And in terms of velocity, when you're going out there on a limited pitch count, 2, 3, 3 1/3, 3 2/3, if you're a starting pitcher, the goal is to at least get through 5. What will be the sustainability of the velocity? But it doesn't matter how hard you're throwing it if you can't spot it a little bit, because Javier at his best isn't just blowing people away with 98, 99 mile per hour fire. It's the invisible fastball that has that mysterious what to it, that at 93, 94, the second half of 2022, right through the postseason, he just bamboozled hitters into where they were just helpless against him. Well, 2023, he was not good. 2024, he was spotty before his arm fell off. So whether it's, will the true Christian Javier please stand up, depending on which Christian Javier that is. I mean, the simple truth of the matter is, at this point, the Astros starting rotation depth is grossly inferior to that of the Mariners, to that of the Rangers. Now, specifically relating to the Rangers, they have a working margin of 4.5, but the Mariners edging nearer and nearer. They're home for the Rays this weekend, and they get the Orioles before the Astros go see Baltimore the end of next week. So I think the American League West is likely at this point to be on the table, certainly to the point when the Astros and Mariners play 3 at Daikin Park the back half of September. A couple of follow-up points to that. The Astros-Mariners season series is 5-5. So the winner of that series takes the tiebreaker. Should it come down to that, closer on the schedule, right, the Astros and Yankees haven't played yet this season. Right? We're into August. It's 3 games up there this weekend, then 3 games at Daikin Park in early September. If either team takes 4 out of 6, well, it's obviously a 2-game gap in the standings and secures the tiebreaker. If it goes 3-3, well, then you just shoot up 6 more games of schedule, which at this point would favor the Astros. The overall schedules, Astros, Mariners, Yankees, you could throw Red Sox, you could throw a hat over all of them. The Texas Rangers are the one that has the, on paper, notably more difficult than the other 4 teams I just mentioned, Astros included.
Yeah, and that's, I think, going to be important because that team is hot. Josh mentioned Javier's velo, so I'd probably worth touching on that. AJ Blueball was touching the high 90s in his relief appearance in the Miami series. And while we're talking about pitching, all season long, it's been the formula, the excellent pitching that has gotten them into this place that they're now fighting to keep in first place. Are they positioned now from a lineup standpoint for the offense to carry more of the weight to allow them the time to tread water while they're trying to get arms back and healthy?
I think the capability is there, and it probably will have to, since right now they only have 2 major league starting pitchers that you say, all right, you feel good when they're going to the mound, and they'll be going Friday and Saturday in Hunter Brown and Framber Valdez. If Walker and Diaz are going to be competent in that middle third of the order, and Correa has found or refound some consistency to his stroke, Altuve's been hovering in the high 700s, right about 800 OPS over the last several weeks now. Pena has swung the bat just fine since his return to the lineup. You used the word depth earlier. There is some of that. And toward the bottom, if Cam Smith's not going to snap out of it, like Dubon's just a sub 700 OPS guy. Typically, Caratini continues to contribute when he's in there. And you mentioned Sanchez. When he joined the Astros, was over 800 with his OPS against right-handed pitching for the season. I think when Jake Myers gets back, if Jake Myers gets back, because Taylor Trammell has started to slope downward. So if you can chip up a little bit here, chip up a little bit there, in the aggregate, and this isn't one of the best lineups in baseball, but I think it's the plus side of the middle, without Yordan, if they're getting what we would think to be reasonable performance from the bulk of the guys. Not that someone needs to go crazy for them.
Yeah, I mean, throughout a lot of the year, the Astros have had one of the better batting averages as a team, but the OPS, the slugging, been kind of middle of the pack, even bottom third part of the time. So it's hard to think they're going to take a big jump, because part of what you're doing is, Correa's replacing Paredes's production, not necessarily giving you more, because Paredes was an all-star. He already played really well. So I don't know if the offense is going to get significantly better. I think with Sanchez, I think he'll definitely help having that left-hander. I think they can find power. Dana talked about, he's like, I love the upside with this guy. He's like, we talked to Centron. We think we can improve his power numbers. And he's already a guy that the analytics tell you has great bat speed. So if they see like another level, maybe you do get that going. You get a little bump there. But I think the other thing to hit on too is like Lance McCullers. He's going to throw on the side, and then he's expected to have a rehab start. And then he's going to be back. And to your point, Brandon, about the depth, that's the other issue is, Arrighetti's not going to give you a lot early on. We know Javier's not. McCullers wasn't giving you a lot of innings even before he got hurt. I know he had the good performance against the Dodgers, but, he was real hit or miss. I mean, just looking at his last 5 starts, 2 2/3, 3 innings, 3 1/3, and then a 5 6 inning performance. So there you see, like, more than half of his starts, he's not giving you more than about 3 innings, 4 innings. So that's going to be something to watch as these pitchers come back. The bullpen's going to be challenged to kind of, take a little bit of the slack off of these guys as they get used to building up their pitch count again.
If Christian Walker can keep the current pace, I know it's not torrid, but it's much better than abysmal, which he's been for most of the year, then that's almost like an acquisition. If they can expect him to do better. If Yainer Diaz can find it and be more consistent with it, but they need that guy because he's not bringing much defensively at all right now. And so they need all the offensive production they can get out of him. And quite frankly, they need all the offensive production they can get out of everybody right now for all the reasons that we mentioned.
Can I piggyback on that, Brandon, real quick?
Sure.
Right now, Yainer and Diaz, they together over the last 30 days, they lead the team in home runs with 4 apiece. Yiner's hitting 289, OPS over 800. Diaz hitting 253 with an OPS of 784. So, I mean, these two guys are your 2 best power hitters right now over the last month. This is what you expected from them. So if they can keep this up, you're right, Brandon, because this version of Yainer and this version of Christian Walker, very different than what we saw earlier in the season.
Well, obviously, we've touched on this. We should probably get to it. Houston travels to New York prior to that rematch with Boston in Daikin. Yankees have lost 13 of 21 going back into like mid-July. Lost 2 of 3 to Texas, so thanks for nothing. Astros, you mentioned it. Astros have Fromber and Brown lined up in those first 2 games. I think Brown and Fromber respectively. How critical is it that they have to take advantage of this Yankees series, take advantage of a Yankees team who's on tilt to hold off the Mariners and Rangers from that top spot? And what are you guys going to be looking for specifically out of this series?
We're still not to mid-August, so it's not quite critical, but it's important for reasons that we talked about. The Astros both within their own division race and in the wild card standings, should that be the route they have to make it to the postseason. On paper, you couldn't ask for much bigger mismatches in the Astros' favor in the first 2 games of the series. Hunter Brown Friday, who looked like primo Hunter Brown for the first time in a fistful of starts in his outing in Boston. And with the off day Thursday, Brown gets an extra day's rest, so he should be ready to fire away opposite Cam Schlittler, who's made 4 big league appearances. He can hit 100 on the gun, but he's made 4 big league appearances. Then Saturday, you have Framber Valdez, who had really 1 hiccup inning at Fenway against the Red Sox, but over his last 15 starts has just been brilliant. The Yankees are going with Luis Gil, who was last season's American League Rookie of the Year, but then his arm fell off in the spring, and he had a very poor first outing upon rejoining the Yankees last week. Then Sunday, the pendulum swings. The Astros in the TBD column, Colt Gordon, or do they want to pull him from the rotation? Jason Alexander on 4 days rest. Max Fried for the Yankees, their $212 million free agent acquisition, who overall has pitched like it, all-star, sub-3 ERA. But Fried's only made 1 quality start, that loose definition of at least 6 innings, no more than 3 earned runs allowed. Only 1 quality start in his last 6. So the Astros, again, on paper, are seeing a favorable Yankees rotation matchup for this weekend. But as always, in one series of baseball, who knows? And the Astros in the regular season have not really had their way at Yankee Stadium in recent years. But again, as always, like the brokerage ads, past performance is no guarantee of future results.
Exactly. That'll be a tough one in game 3 against Max Fried. That's because we still, like Charlie pointed out, we're not exactly sure who's going to pitch. And Fried's really good, but Charlie's right. 2 of his last 3 outings, he's given up at least 4 runs. So he hasn't been at the peak of his abilities. But that is going to be a challenge to beat him with a lesser guy. Of course, the way this season goes, who knows? Alexander could go out there and throw another 6 scoreless or do something wild like that. But, this kind of stuff is about what's most likely to happen. And what's most likely to happen is you try and win those 2 games with Fromber and with Hunter Brown, try and get out of there with the series win.
Yeah, the Yankees have to look at Houston as also an opportunity to take advantage of a team that's also hasn't really been on a torrid pace over the past month. So they're also going to look at it as an opportunity to maybe get well. But again, they're going to have their work cut out for them with Brown and Fromber on the mound. Final thoughts before we're out the door.
The Yankees have obviously the richest history of all major league franchises. Saturday is Old Timers Day at Yankee Stadium, where they'll introduce all kinds of ex-Yankee players. For the first time since pre-COVID, they're actually going to play an Old Timers game, 2 or 3 innings, depending on how long it runs. Astros and Yankees are playing at 2:05 Eastern Time on Saturday. I'm all for the Astros putting one of these on. The Astros have enough history now and can overlap multiple generations of players. What a blast would it be to see Bagwell and Biggio and Berkman, and we can go back farther than those guys, and just have them on the field some Saturday or Sunday afternoon game at Daikin Park next season for just a celebration of the history of Astros baseball. Jose Cruz at 77 years old in an old-timers game. How fun would it be to see him square up a line drive single? And I wouldn't bet against him.
I'm going to go back to just kind of an overview of, I just love this Correa trade as an Astros fan because it brings back the, everybody else versus us mentality. I felt like with just Altuve really being, the main face of the 2017 season, it hasn't been as fun. So you trade for Carlos Correa and you get to go to Fenway and listen to all them boo Altuve and boo Correa. And then now we get to go watch them go to Yankee Stadium. And now it's not just Altuve. They're going to be raining the boos down on. You got Correa too. It feels like just the old Astros team, that spirit is back again. So I love these high stakes games on the road where they hate Houston and we hate them just as much. And now that we got Correa, we got our bad guys back, Altuve and Correa. This is going to be fun.
It's been obviously an overwhelming positive reception for getting Correa back. We've had some people in our comments that were, not thrilled about the commitment to him and the money necessarily, given the health issues and the numbers that he put up this year prior to the trade. But it's been kind of unreal, maybe surreal is the better way to say it, because he hasn't made his home debut yet with the team. They've been on the road the entire time, but having Espada talking about Correa, having Jeremy Pena and Correa on the field at the same time, it's been kind of surreal to see that. Now that's been the reaction locally. Nationally, the reaction has been like, "Oh no, not this team again." In fact, I think is Jared Carrabas who made the comment during the Red Sox series. I thought I was done watching Carlos Correa hit tanks in an Astros uniform, but here we are. So we'll see. I like their chances, and I'm with you. I'm excited to have Correa back on the team again as well. Quick message: if you're interested in advertising your service or product on our show, contact our friends on the sales team by visiting houston.sportsmap.com/advertise. The link is in the description. One last reminder: if you're watching on YouTube, be sure to click like on the video, and if you listen on podcasts on apps like Apple or Spotify, give us a 5-star rating there, if you will. Next scheduled episode will drop on Monday, so make sure you subscribe to this channel with those notifications on. For Charlie and Josh, I'm Brandon saying so long. Thanks for listening, and as always, go Stros.